All right, it looks like we are coming online and have participants coming on board. Daquan, thank you for getting us set up. All right, we're gonna wait, everybody come on board. We've got about 65 people coming on. We had about 90 RSVPs. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming on. All right, we're gonna get started in just a second with this education town hall. We've got some special guests that are joining us tonight. We're really excited to have them on. We'll be introducing them in a minute. And it looks like, all right, we've leveled out a number of people, so maybe we'll have some more join. All right, everybody, I'm State Representative Graig Meyer from Orange County, and happy to have you all joining us for this education town hall. On the Zoom right now, you should be able to see my colleague, Representative Ashton Clemmons from Guilford County. Say hello, Ashton.
Hi, everybody. We're glad to be with you tonight.
All right, and Ashton is currently serving as the chair, one of the co-chairs of the House Select Committee on Education, which House Speaker Tim Moore set up to address what we need to do on education priorities in the coronavirus response. And so she'll be able to talk to you in detail about that. And then you also should see Mr. Freebird McKinney, former North Carolina Teacher of the Year, currently working with the State Board of Education. What's your title, Freebird? Legislative Liaison, or do you have a different title?
It's technically the Director of Legislative and Community Affairs.
All right, very fancy title. You've been upgraded from teacher, but you have not lost your teacher style. That's
never.
So lots of educators on here. We've got a couple other guests that are going to be joining us through the Zoom. I want to give you a quick update on where we are with responding to education and what we're doing in North Carolina. So as you know, schools are going to be closed through May 15th at least. We're trying to hold on to some semblance of having an end of the school year available for kids so that kids and adults can get back and have a little bit of time to connect with each other and have some healing, get life back to normal. We're going to talk a lot about what it's going to take to do distance learning and all kinds of other things related to schools today. If you've got questions, you can put them in the Q&A and they will be read out loud. If you want to talk with other panelists about education or other people who are participating, you can put that in the chat. If you've got resources to share, feel free to put those in the chat. And if you want us to call on you and give you a chance to speak, you can go in the participants panel and then click the raise my hand button. And if you click raise hand, then one of us will get to calling on you eventually. But we'd probably prefer to have most of the questions in the Q&A box if you can potentially put them in the Q&A box. Let's introduce our other guest who just came on. You should be able to see Deanna Townsend-Smith. Deanna is the Executive Director for the State Board of Education. Did I get that right, Deanna?
You got it right. How you doing?
Right. And are you a former teacher as well?
I am. I will never lose that love. Former teacher, former administrator. You know, once you do that work, you always love it. So.
What was your favorite thing that you ever taught?
Second grade.
7-year-olds.
Yes.
There's probably going to be parents on here tonight that are going to want to have some advice on what to do with their 7-year-olds for the next 6 weeks. So we're glad you're here. I'm going to give one more quick update before I turn it over to Ashton to talk about education. So here's what we know right now about the legislative response to the situation we're in. The House has set up a select committee to begin working on how to respond to the coronavirus crisis. And we have the Education Committee that Representative Clemmons is chairing, along with Representatives Craig Horn and Representative John Fraley. We also have a committee on Health and Human Services to figure out how to respond to the emerging medical needs and health needs of the state. And we have a committee on economic response, what we're going to do for small businesses. And then we have a fourth committee, not just small businesses, but all businesses. And that's probably one that will also deal with unemployment for workers. And then we have a committee on government functions, which could include how do we respond, what do we need to do as to support our governmental agencies in responding to this, as well as what are we going to do to adjust our elections if we have to do voting differently in the age of coronavirus. So those are the 4 committees that are going to begin working. The legislative response comes a little bit after the executive branch response. Think about this like a hurricane, where the governor and all the emergency people swoop in and figure out what to do first, and then eventually they come to us and they ask us for guidance, or for support, not guidance, for support on what we can do to support the state. But we have to have the governor's guidance before we make any big budget decisions or any major policy decisions. On education, we're working not only with the governor's team, but closely with the State Board of Education. And so we're glad to have Freebird and Deanna here tonight to talk to us about those things. But right now I'm going to ask for Representative Clemmons to unmute yourself and give us an update on what is happening behind the scenes on how we're preparing to deal with our education needs. Go ahead, Ashton Clemmons.
Hi, everybody. It's State Representative Ashton Clemmons. I represent House District 57 in North and Northeast Greensboro, but this is my first term in the legislature, and my heart is really as an educator. I taught kindergarten and first and second grade and was a school principal for 8 years and then worked in central office. And so I am, as Greg said, I'm very honored to have been appointed one of the 3 chairs of the House committee that's responding to this crisis in our state, and it has been such an honor to bring the voices of educators to the work within the legislature and the bigger work in general. So I am loving it. We're excited to be able to connect with you tonight and give you some updates, and most importantly, answer the questions that I know you all have. So I am going to just talk a little bit about where we are and then go over the main issues that we know we have to address. Now, we don't have the answers on a lot of these, and we're not going to be able to answer them tonight. This is a chance for us to share what we see as issues, hear from you all on those issues, things we need to consider as we're really working together with the state board, the governor's office, and DPI, and with our colleagues in the legislature to do what we need to do for the children and educators of our state. And at their core, for me, this is actually my same belief that I've always had, but is really the belief that a 5-year-old in one county or one community or one neighborhood in North Carolina is no more or less deserving than a 5-year-old in a different county or community in North Carolina. So as we figure out how to respond, I hope that's the core belief we all will keep with us and figuring out how to serve each and every North Carolina child well. So Governor Cooper yesterday extended our instructional buildings closure through May 15th. He asked the state board to come up with a plan with 3 areas. We want to ensure access to quality education for the remainder of this school year. And while we are not in school buildings, strengthen and provide students with the highest possible remote learning that we know that they need while they're home, and ensure that employees, all employees, no matter who they are in our education system, are going to be paid as they plan to be paid for this school year. So those were the three directives that Governor Cooper gave to the state board. And we have been working a lot on kind of the broad issues that have brought up. So I just want to run through our list of kind of the major issues that we know are going on. And then we're happy to hear people's feedback. You can answer questions anytime in the Q&A box. And also you can raise your hand too, and Daquan is making sure we know people that have raised their hand. I think it'll be easiest in the Q&A, but we will call on people as well. Okay, so the major issues. First is the school calendar. So we in state law have a written 1,085 hours, 80 hours, or 185 days as required right now in law. And so there's a lot of discussion and questions about what we're going to do with the school calendar. Compensation has been a big topic. Governor Cooper made it very clear that he wants the state board to work with all of our districts to ensure that all of our educators and school employees are paid. And so we are working with the state board as well to figure out language to ensure that that happens. We know that our educators, whether it's the teacher in front of the classroom, the school bus driver who ensures all of our children can get to school, the janitor who cleans up at the end of the day, all are critical to our students. They were critical before this happened. They're critical now, and they will be critical as we move forward past this crisis in our state. And we need to treat them with the value that we believe that they are, which is invaluable to our schools. So we are working with the legislature and state board to ensure compensation. Testing and accountability is a major issue as well. Testing and accountability. We were applied for a federal waiver, which we were just granted yesterday, and the Department of Education is granting federal waivers for testing. So now we'll be moving to state waivers and what we need to do within the legislature to change some state waivers. Student teachers, if we have any student teachers or people who had student teachers, I'm actually working with 10 student teachers in 8 different districts in North Carolina this semester. So I know a lot of them are very worried. We understand that they were not able, most of them, to fulfill their required 15 weeks of student teaching. So we know that we got to adjust that. One of the biggest challenges is we are working to have high quality digital learning opportunities for kids across our state. But the reality is that many of our North Carolina children cannot access those digital learning materials. They don't have the device, they don't have reliable internet. So I know that there's a bunch of work has been done at DPI. A whole lot of work has been done in our districts. Here in Guilford County, there's been a Herculean effort really to get devices to people as they need them, but we know that the internet is still an issue even if they get the device. So that is a big issue that we need to continue to work on. School nutrition is another one. And so a lot of our districts have done a lot of great work having feeding sites, taking buses and delivering food, but we know in our state we have many children, a large percentage actually, that are food insecure, and that's just going to increase with the economic situation that we have going on in response to this virus. So we also know that making sure our kids are fed is an important part of our work. We want to make sure our seniors have what they need so that they can graduate. So that's an important one. Teacher evaluations, we know that there's a good chance those are going to have some changes because we're not going to be able to get through all of them. Just a couple more. Licensure renewals. A lot of people are in the middle of licensure renewals. We know we'll have to address those. Exceptional children is something we are increasingly hearing more and more about. A lot of that is federal law. Most of it, actually. There's very little about EC exceptional children, that state law that we could impact, but we will be working. We reached out today actually to the Department of Ed to get some more clarification. And we know our educator prep programs, most of our universities have had to close, and they end before this, their semester's over before this closure even is let back up at May 15th. And so we know we're going to have to work with our pre-service teachers, because when we are all back in our schools feeling whole in the fall, whenever that is that the school year starts, we're going to need all those great teachers there. So that is a quick rundown of the major issues as we see them, and we are happy to have questions about those, share thoughts or anything like that. Greg?
All right, we've already got a bunch of questions coming in the Q&A box. If you have additional questions, feel free to put them there. If you want us to call on you, you can use the raise hand feature under the participants button. Freebird, is there anything you want to add to what Ashton just talked about before we jump into questions?
I want to make one point that a lot of my colleagues and I have always really held dear, and that is when we use the word educator, it means so many different ways that we serve. From the moment that kid walks on the bus to our bus drivers, to that first time they walk in the doors to go in and get breakfast, to our custodial staff that knows so many of our kids and walking up and down the halls and attends to so many of their needs, as they walk into the counseling office and the school psychologists and nurses and social workers, the front desk, and then obviously into our classrooms. Like, there's so many levels of what it means to be an educator. And I just want to say thank you to all of you all that are stepping up and serving our kids and serving our communities and serving our schools in so many different ways. Like, we are all educators. Like, obviously I'm a teacher at heart, but just to say thank you to every single person that educates our kids on a daily basis. And that extends out in our communities too. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Freebird. Deanna, can you unmute yourself, and do you want to add anything?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So just to underscore some of the things that everyone has just said on the call, I think that what this crisis has taught us is that schools serve so many different purposes. And as we go about this work, we want to make sure that we ensure that we address the needs of the whole child. And so building in a lot of those social emotional supports and ensuring that students continue to get those soft touches, be they meals, just love from their teachers through video, et cetera. So I know that that's been a major focus for us as we begin the work of formalizing this plan as we move forward to get something formalized per the governor's charge.
Great. Thank you. And speaking of the governor, we have our additional special guest, Jeff Coltrane, Governor Cooper's education advisor. Jeff, will you introduce yourself and just add anything that you want to add?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Thanks for having us tonight. I think I would just echo what I heard both Freebird, Deanna, and Representative Clemmons share there, is that, as you know, some of the governor's favorite people are educators, and he's been fighting to make sure that our teachers have what they need to make sure that our students are successful. And as I've heard a number of folks say over the last week and a half, that educators, our teachers, our teaching assistants, our bus drivers, our child nutrition workers really right now are like first responders. They're the ones who are out there trying to take care of our kids as much as they can. If it's delivering meals, if it's delivering packets of work, if it's helping to teach remotely, if it's just picking up the phone and calling and checking in on their students to make sure that they're doing okay and to see how things are going. So right now, our teachers are really stepping up to this challenge in some pretty amazing and creative ways. And so it's quite exciting to see the work that's happening in a very traumatic and stressful time. And so just thankful for that. And I know, as Deanna said, want to make sure that the state's working on a plan to support our teachers, continuing to do that great work through May 15th. And then hoping that we'll be able to get back into our school buildings and finish out the year strong and make sure our students have everything they need during that last month or so of school.
Great. Jeff, thanks for making time to join us tonight. I know that everybody on this call has been working long hours. Thanks for doing this public engagement.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dayla, for posting a resource from the Friday Institute in the chat. If there are other resources that you want to share, feel free to post those in the chat. If you got questions, put them in the Q&A or raise your hand. We've got a series of questions already. I'm going to start with Jill's question that's at the top of the Q&A. Jill Grimm, my friend from Phyllis Middle School in Chapel Hill. Is there a plan to give more guidance on exceptional children's services? We've got IEPs falling out of compliance. We heard Representative Clemmons talk about how most of that is federal. Deanna or Freebird, do either of you want to talk about what we're doing for exceptional children's services?
Yeah, so I can speak to that, and Freebird, feel free to piggyback on anything. I know that our Exceptional Children's Division is a part of one of those working groups, and so they have someone assigned to each of the working groups that we have formed to formulate the plan. And so some additional guidance will be coming out in the next few days because the feds have sent down some further clarification on some issues. So Director Thomas was working with the legal team today to see what that guidance will be in the coming days.
And do you have any sense, like, is that guidance like a week out or a month out, or it's just too hard to say?
Probably no later than Monday from my last conversation with her today.
Okay, great. So that's coming quickly. All right. Justin Parmenter, a fantastic education writer and commenter.
Can I also speak on that last question real quick before my man Justin asks a question?
Yep.
One of the remote and distance learning team has been working so hard and really trying to answer the specific needs of each and every one of our students. So we've also been working on a program and initiative with UNC TV that will try and use some of the curated curriculum that they also use, but also bringing in some of the teachers around the state to build in some videos, to build in some segues, some introduction to hit on some of that social emotional connection that our teachers are so brilliant at, and build out in a couple of phases some program. And I think that also is going to really speak to a great majority of our students who have access to public television, who it will be able to, parts of it will be able to be translated, and also they'll be hearing impaired and closed caption at the bottom. So again, speaking specific to some of those ECU needs as well. So I just want to add that in. There's a lot of great initiatives and programs that we're working on.
So that was wonderful. You just answered Bill's question. We are engaging with public television to help out. And then Sonia has a related question to what you talked about, Freebird, about are we coming up with a plan to guide districts on distance schooling, and what does that plan consist of so far?
Yeah, that is absolutely one of the focuses of the working groups, and there's a specific team. There's a great resource that DPI has been curating for remote resources. I mean, it is a reservoir of different. We're teaming up with North Carolina Virtual Public Schools to speak to one of the things that Representative Clemmons mentioned. That's one of the ways that we're really trying to accelerate making sure that our seniors are lined up for graduation. So we're teaming up with that. So I mean, this remote learning website has so many tools. So we're going to make sure we get that to everyone if they don't already have access to that before we end tonight.
All right, great. Ashton, you want to pick out the next question?
I didn't want to cut Justin off though. He had one, right?
Well, let's take Justin's, and then Representative Clemmons, you can pick the next one. Justin Parmenter is asking how much money will be saved by not administering end of year tests, and what will happen to that money. Representative Clemmons, I know you've been working on budget questions. Do you have an answer on this?
We don't have an answer yet on how much money we will be saving, but we are certainly trying. We have physical staff looking at, there are lots of things that will have different budgets, of course, than we thought that they did. And so we're trying to figure out what that amount is, and then how do we use it to support the priorities of having as high quality instruction as we can for as many days as we can for this school year, supporting kids while they're in school, or whether they're out of school, while they're in home. And then certainly we'll have to start looking at how do we fill gaps that are going to be created in this time. So that is the discussion. We don't have an answer on that money, how much it will be. But there are lots of things that are not going to go as we planned. And so we'll have to figure out what that amount is and how do we reallocate it in the best ways for our kids. So we are working on that.
Does anybody else want to talk about that piece?
So I can, this is Jeff Coltrane again. I'm not sure how much money would be saved either, but I have heard, I think that a lot of the tests that were going to be administered have already been printed. So they're sort of sitting, waiting to be distributed. So one thought has been, is instead of using those for accountability purposes, could teachers at the beginning of next year use them for instructional purposes, and maybe use them at sort of like the beginning of the year to get some baseline information on where students are, especially given that we'll have so many days where they haven't been in the classroom. They've been learning, but they haven't been in the classroom. So I think it's a good question as to how much money will be saved, but there's also some thinking about creative ways maybe to use some of what would have happened at the end of the year to maybe help drive instruction more so than just testing for accountability.
So this is related to Chelsea's question, which is the next one in the queue. And Chelsea asked, is there a plan or recommendation to waive read to achieve testing? So yes, that looks like it's in the works. And then she says, is there a plan for summer reading camps? And this is related to what Representative Clemmons was talking about in terms of how are we going to use any additional money we have to support learning. I'm going to jump in here and say that I believe that wherever we do have some financial savings, which isn't going to be a ton, and we're going to have some really tough budget decisions to make, that wherever we do have that we should try and put that into supplemental learning for students over the summer for kids who we know lost learning while we were out of school for this extended time period. I just really feel like it is there are some kids that are going to do fine with our distance learning options and going to have enriching home environments, and other ones who will need a boost heading into next year. We can't let them fall farther behind. So that is my hope as a legislator. Let's go on to the next
And
question.
I want to add real quickly, Greg, on that question. So we have actually the testing and accountability waiver. There are several things that are in state law that are going to have to be addressed. So Read to Achieve is one of them. Teacher bonuses that have been paid for accountability is another one. We have a list of those. And our task force is going to be meeting later this week for our first meeting, and that is one of the topics that we'll be discussing. And that will be streamed online like all of our meetings, so anyone can listen in to that. But that is, there are lots of domino effects, but I think Read to Achieve is at the top of those to having the waivers for testing and accountability.
And so the next question in the queue from John is about how will this impact teacher evaluations? And you're talking about accountability. Can anybody give any more specifics about what will happen to teacher evaluations this year? And also it impacts principal pay and a number of other things.
This is Deanna. So I know that that question has come up a variety of times, and we built out a Q&A, much so reference to that website that Freebird referenced earlier, that pretty much talks about that that there should not be any evaluations happening during this distance learning time, as we are trying to make sure that children are getting what they need through making sure that their social emotional learning needs are met right now, and that the focus, especially during this break in instruction, and hopefully when we return, should not be focused on teacher evaluation at this time. So that's been a part of our recommendation.
Okay.
So we have, thank you, Deanna. We have Phyllis. It says, I'm a parent of a middle school and high school student. My question is regarding 11th grade and grades. What is the plan for high school students receiving grades for this quarter rather than receiving a pass-fail? And Jamie said his question, my parents are primarily concerned with how their credits will work. Is there a plan to provide established home-based programs rather than having teachers wing it? So I think both of these are kind of questions about what are going to be the expectations for this time that kids are at home and that work is assigned. And I think this is one of the main areas that the state board is really looking at. And then there are work groups in DPI that are doing that work too. So I think questions about how is work going to be graded? What is it going to mean for kids? How do we make sure that what's being assigned to our children has some fidelity and strength across all of our districts is a big topic that I know the state board is working through and plans on making recommendations to the governor either late this week or early next week about those topics. Jeff, I don't know, or Freebird, go ahead.
I wanted to follow up on what Dr. Townsend Smith was talking about with the FAQ link. And so what we have tried to do is to categorize a series of frequently asked questions that we're getting throughout the state from multiple sectors and build out a reservoir of answers. We then kind of block off that cell. So that is a standing answer at the time unless that changes. So in the remote learning resources and the COVID-19 resources that DPI has right now, I think that page for questions like that, we're doing our best, or not me personally, but a team, is doing their best to try to answer those questions and then have some kind of guidance for that. So that would be an excellent resource. It's not going to have every single question that I'm seeing tonight, but I'm looking at a lot of them and saying that is on that link. So that FAQ link, and I believe that was launched today. Jeff or Dr. Townsend Smith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's accessible now.
It was launched yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay, great.
Can you post a link to that into the chat? That would be amazing. I want to give a shout out to Jamie Carr, who just asked one of those two questions that Representative Clemmons boosted, because Jamie is my son Mason's teacher, and I was sitting across from him earlier this week when she called to check in on him. So thank you for being an outstanding teacher, Ms. Carr. If y'all are using the Q&A function and you're posting questions, you also might want to go see what other people are posting, because if you like someone else's question, it boosts it to the top. So the ones that we're answering are the ones that have the most likes. So we're going to go to Laura Brannon's. about calendar. What's going to happen with our calendar? Do we change again? Do we have to go to school over the summer? What happens if things get back to normal in May? I know that we don't have an answer to this question yet, but does anybody want to talk about what are some of the things we've considered?
This is Jeff, and I'm happy to share a little bit about what's being considered. Obviously, the governor's charge to the state board was to try and make sure that our students are getting as high quality of an education as possible, especially during this closure time. So, making sure that our schools and districts and teachers have the resources they need to provide good remote learning, but also if we're able to get back into the classroom, what are some ways that we can make sure to maximize that face-to-face time with teachers, which we know is important both for student learning, but also for their socio-emotional and health and well-being as well. So a couple of ideas that have been considered. Is there a way to try and extend the school year a little bit by a week or two towards the end? And what would be some creative ways to approach that? There's also been some thought given that, we're experiencing this pandemic right now, but we don't know what the next 12 to 18 months are going to look like either. There's some public health thinking that there could be a second wave of this that we might have to adjust for. And so in sort of preparation for that, what are some ways that we might be able to think about to restructure the next school year so that we might be able to build in some time in case we have to have periods like this in the future. So there's some really creative thinking by the state board, the team at DPI, the legislators on this call, and other folks who are really giving some good thinking and advice on that. And so those are all some options that are being considered. But all of them, I think, would involve rethinking our current calendar structure with that August 25th and June 10th timeframe. Which we know has been problematic since it started, but also making sure that there's enough flexibility for our schools and teachers to sort of do what they need to do in the future.
All right, we are going to move to Cynthia, who raised their hand. So Cynthia, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
She's still muted. Daquan, can you unmute Cynthia?
Daquan says she's unmuted. Cynthia?
It looks like she might have herself muted because it still shows up as muted. Maybe we can come back.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do one question, and then Cynthia, we are going to come back to you. Susan Meyer, Greg, is this somebody related to you? Susan Meyer asked a question that got 8 likes, so it must be a popular question. If the school calendar is extended into the summer for North Carolina schools, what will happen with districts that have already been doing virtual schooling? Will those teachers be compensated for additional time? Thank you. So I know that this is a big question, and I can assure you that we in the legislature, I know the state board as well, believes that we have to value the time that teachers are giving and would not ask teachers to be working uncompensated. So there are a lot of different options being discussed on how we would do that, what that would look like if the decision is made to do extra time. But we would figure out a way that teachers would be compensated. We would not be asking teachers to work unpaid. Jeff, do you want to add anything there?
I would just agree wholeheartedly. The idea is not that we're going to be asking anyone to work without pay, but we want to make sure that we both reward our students and you for the time you're doing now, but also try to maximize that time later. So completely agree. We would not be asking anyone to work extra time without getting compensated for that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Let's try to get back. Cynthia, did we get you? No. Okay, next person. Greg, you ready?
I think Cynthia Cynthia unmuted, then remuted, right? Cynthia. Here we go.
I just want to say I did get my question answered already.
Oh, great. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you so much. All right, Brian Grant has a question. Where districts where food is being wasted because it's being prepared but not picked up, is there a way to clear a path for that to be donated instead of thrown away? Does somebody want to talk about feeding efforts overall and maybe answer that specifically?
I mean, I can talk a little bit about it. I don't I don't know about the question about
Yeah, I don't know.
food, but I know the team at DPI led by Lynn Harvey, the school nutrition team, and then school nutrition professionals all across the state have been working hard to get food out to our students and their families. They've been working with school transportation in many districts, and we have yellow buses that are out delivering food to students across communities. They've also been working to set up what are called nutrition hubs. So these are sort of centrally located areas where the food might come and be delivered, and students and their families can come and pick up the food. And some of them are even coordinating with local food banks to have other resources available at these nutrition hubs as well. I think last Friday, they crossed the million mark. I believe they were like over 1 million meals that were delivered last Friday, which was quite an amazing feat. I think it's a great question about what's happening with food that's not picked up. And that's something I think we could take back to Lynn to see if there might be an answer for that. But that's an excellent question and one we can look into.
Jeff, because someone else said that was also happening where they were serving food. So
Oh, really? Okay.
So let's get that shared to the group, the work group that's working on that.
Absolutely.
It's also an area, though, where you have to think about the levels of response to this crisis, and the feeding. The state is helping to try and coordinate resources, make sure that the money is available, the regulations are loosened, et cetera. But the feeding itself is being done mostly by local school boards, maybe in conjunction with local partners. I got a complaint today from someone in a county who said that their county was not using buses to transport food to kids, and therefore the kids weren't getting food, and the bus drivers weren't getting paid, which we've said that we should be trying to pay those classified employees. I don't know that there's a ton that we can do to force that school district to do it better, but folks in that local community should absolutely be contacting their school board members and ask them to do what's happening in so many other counties.
Completely agree. And I think that they've been working at DPI to make sure that any regulations around using the yellow buses are smoothed out so that it should be easier for folks to do that. So
I was going to say that has been an area where a lot of the federal waivers that have been sought have been approved. And with the Coronavirus Families First Act, there's been some things at the federal level that's really been helping out as well.
Okay, I am going to combine a couple of questions. Alessandro asks about the Leandro and West Edward. And
oh, great.
and so Alessandro says the West Ed report showed us the variance of quality of education that unfortunately exists statewide, and remote distance learning has brought more attention to these gaps. As everything that's happened with COVID-19 delayed any timelines regarding the state's Leandro response. So Leandro, in a 5-second nutshell, is a court case that has been going on for 25 years, where some families from Eastern North Carolina sued the state for not having high quality instruction and learning for sound basic education, which is part of our Constitution, for their children. And for 25 years, it's been going back and forth, and there was a report done in 2019 about what is needed to bring our state where it should be. And so that's the West Ed report, and we can probably post links if people are interested in that. And so the short-term plans to address the still our unconstitutional education system is what the court decided. And so the short-term plans were due March 30th. That has been pushed back 30 days. But I would say that I was on a call today and we were talking about Leandro. So I do believe there's still commitment to moving that work forward. Our short-term plan is moved back just a little bit in response to what's going on, but we're still moving on with working with the Leandro report. And that is something Greg and I have done a town hall about, if you want to go back to either of our Facebook pages and learn more about Leandro. And I just want to get Margaret Arbuckle, who is a stalwart education advocate here in Guilford County. Her question was, in this time of scary health and mental health concerns, what consideration is being given to making sure school children have a school nurse in school every day? We need school nurses in school every day. And I combined this with Leandro because one of the things that we saw most clearly is the need for our support staff, so including counselors, mental health therapists, librarians, school nurses. We have a long way to go to be what?
Social workers.
Social workers. Sorry, Greg. We have a long way to go in every single one of those categories to get to the national recommendations. And that was a big part of the Leandro report. And we know that those are going to be even more important after our children are back in our school settings, after going through all of the things that so many families are going to be going through in response to the sicknesses that they have, the emotional stress of the economic issues that are going to come up. So those things are going to be even more needed. So we need all of your help to continue advocating for us to have the support staff that we need. Greg, I'm sure you want to say something about that, right?
Well, yeah, what I want to say is, to me, it is a priority to get kids and teachers and those other support folks in the school, social workers, et cetera, together, even if it's only for one day of school. Like, I just think kids are going to need a sense of closure, and that you know, teachers love their students, and we're all going to need a hug when we can finally touch again. And I want to make sure that we give folks a chance to do that, if at all possible, this school year. That is just such a big priority for me. Now, we won't know whether we do that or not unless the General Assembly takes some action. So I'm quickly going to answer Braxton's question about will we have a special session to address these issues. I think it's quite possible we'll have a special session before April 28th, but we won't know that for a couple weeks because we're trying to get a list together of what we want to do. And that's why we have these legislative select committees working first to kind of get the business done so that we can show up and do the special session. The first education committee meeting is going to be on Thursday at 2. Is it?
At 1.
At 1. Thursday at 1 o'clock. And so if you want to watch the first remote meeting on WebEx, then you can watch that Thursday at 1 through the General Assembly's website. Freebird, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Well, I just, Dr. Townsend Smith, and honestly, anybody and everybody that we've been working on, different working groups, including Jeff, have talked about the possibility, you know, I mean, I'm a big Shawshank fan, and Red says, you know, that the greatest of things is hope. And I hope that what we get out of this is that we have the opportunity to re-envision serving our kids and that whole child, and building out a true strategic plan that has allowed a greater community to see what our schools provide our students and what our educators serve our kids on a day-to-day basis. And I think, speaking to so many of the things and the question, like, this is giving us an opportunity to look at the Leandro underlies all of this. And the strategic plan of the state board echoes all of this. It's serving that whole child. And I couldn't agree with you more, Representative Myers. Like, I mean, our kids are going to come back, and they're going to need us like they've never needed us. The coaches, they're the people that serve them breakfast and lunch, their teachers, like every single person that they're used to seeing on a day-to-day basis, they're going to need. And this is just sharpening that vision and how we proceed and move forward. So, so continue to provide, you know, some guidance so that we make sure that as we build this plan out collectively and collaboratively, we take all these into consideration.
Looks like we lost Freebird for a second. Let's move on to the.
No, I'm here.
Oh, for a second. We hear you though. So we've got a bunch of likes right now for Jamie Carr's question, little comments from a couple, Jill Grimm, on all the resources that are being provided to teachers to help. With all this stuff that's being sent to them, there's also still inconsistency across the state on whether teachers are teaching new stuff or just doing work that is enrichment. What are we doing to kind of make sure that there's some consistency across school districts, and to make sure that teachers have the best resources they can to have really good learning environments for their kids? Deanna, do you want to take this one? You've been quiet for a little while.
Okay. Yes, I can take that one. So over this time where we have been in break status, the plan is to, like, materials that should have been going out are supplemental. We know that there have been some inconsistencies across the state, which is why we are looking forward to this plan that we hope to put out in the coming days to help streamline what those expectations are and set some guidelines around like definitions of what we mean by remote and distance learning, because those things are new in this new way of that we're doing education right now. So I think that as we move forward, I think we should start seeing more consistency across the state, because we do have to ensure, at its core, that sound basic education. So we are working to ensure there is some consistency over time.
Does anybody else want to add to that?
That's
So
good.
Karen has a question that is bumped up in the likes that is somewhat related. And essentially Karen is saying, we have a lot going on right now. Teachers have their kids at home, like Ashton does. And we've got people who are taking care of other needs. And we have kids who don't have access to supportive environments. So kind of what's the balance between the desire to educate kids and then the need for real good family support and social emotional opportunities? I would say this briefly in answer to that. I think that one thing, if you look back at periods of depression, like the Great Depression, or periods where folks are locked at home during pandemics or other situations, people need some sort of structure for their day. And to the extent possible, I think that both educators and students are going to benefit from having a couple hours a day, a few hours a day that they can either work or do instructional time. But I think Karen's point is right, that it's probably not going to be a full 6-hour school day. It's going to be something less than that. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that kind of work versus?
I have an 8-year-old and twin 5-year-olds. And so our house is busy, and like many moms that are at home, and dads and grandmas and grandpas and whomever are responsible for these children that are now not in school, my 5-year-olds have a whole different learning system than my 8-year-olds, so they're not the same. And I counted today, I got 11 emails between my daughter's school and their school, 11 emails. Now add that on top of the fact that I was on conference calls for at least 7 hours about education stuff today. And that is, in our home, it is quite crazy. And so I'm trying to have a time where the kids can do instruction, but the reality is everybody, we want to provide what we can for kids. I just want to say from my own personal experience, we should also all give our kids, the parents, their families, and the educators grace, because we're going to do the best we can, and some of the worksheets may not get done or the assignments may not get done, and that's an okay thing too. So I think for all of us it's hard because we're still trying to operate with the way things were, and we haven't yet adjusted that we're all going to have to make some difference. So the personal Ashton here just wants to encourage everyone to give yourselves, your teachers, your kids some grace. My 8-year-old last night, she was just kind of down, and I said, Letty, what's wrong? She said, Mom, I just feel blah, and I miss my friends, and I miss my school. And that's what many of our kids are going through. That's what our teachers are going through. So we just all need to give each other some grace, and give yourself grace. If they don't get one assignment done, it's going to be okay.
What do you want to go to next, Representative Clemmons?
Well, I was on a roll with that question, Greg. I wasn't reading. There was one question about homeless children, which is something that I had spent some time on. I was school principal of the highest poverty school in Guilford County for 4 years, and about 30% of our school were considered homeless with the McKinney-Vento Act. And so that's a particular passion of mine, because so many of our children are vulnerable, but those are really the most vulnerable among us. And so I wanted to just point out that homeless children were included in Governor Cooper's first executive order, where schools and other entities could work to create childcare spaces for children for first responders, but it intentionally included homeless children because we advocated to make sure that people could set things up for our homeless children. And there are lots of school districts, churches that have been trying to create safe environments. We know homeless children are more likely to have acts of violence against them. And so I'm glad that question was asked. There is opportunity within the executive order, and I hope that people will be working within their districts and communities to support our homeless children. In Guilford County alone, we have 2,200, so 2,200 of our children are considered homeless here in Guilford County. And that's, we know across the state is a much larger number than it should be. And unfortunately is going to increase in the current environment. And so I'm glad the question was asked, and encourage folks to be working together. We are working at the state level on some of those things, and we did advocate to make sure it was included in the executive order.
Representative Clemmons, if I can just add a little bit to that too. As part of this working group that Governor Cooper set up through the executive order as well, DHHS has some folks that focus on housing. And then there's also a homeless education center that's part of the Surf Center there in Greensboro. And I know they're coordinating resources as well for outreach to homeless students. And another homeless student population that we also tend not to think as much about is our college students. There's a fair number of college students who are also homeless. And a lot of our public and private universities are actually putting in place support so that those students can remain on campus and still get services during this time when most students have been sent home. So I know a lot of our colleges are also paying attention to those students' needs as well.
So I think this is related to Jamie's question, which is the next in the queue, in some ways about how to motivate and communicate with students who are challenged to get a hold of. Certainly homeless kids are going to be a little harder to get in touch with. I've heard two creative ideas to that in the last couple of days from one, I think actually they might have both been from Jackson County schools. One was that the schools created a list of the kids that they were trying to target and figure out how to get in touch with, and then created a shared Google sheet so that all teachers could track whether they were in touch with any of the kids and share information across teachers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that was really, really neat. So I think you don't have to do it alone. Jamie, you could work with colleagues. And then the other idea was that they knew that some of those kids, they weren't going to be able to get on the computer or phone, they would get at the feeding sites. And so they were making sure that they tracked who was showing up at each of the feeding sites and could get packets and communication to kids if they were coming to pick up a meal each day. So those are two things. I would also say, as a social worker, that you should expect that there is going to be a curve, that we're only in the very beginning of this.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some kids that are going to disappear almost completely. You're not going to be able to get them back, but there's also going to be a curve back up where some kids who right now are really enjoying their freedom are going to start to want structure and support within a few days, and they're going to start coming back around to you. So you probably know those kids from the school year, the ones that you have a hard time, and then all of a sudden they hit a crisis and they start showing up at your door. You're going to see that virtually as well.
Can I just add, I saw that a teacher that I know that works at a school that has really lots of families with inconsistent phone numbers and things like that. And she was every day writing a letter, like a personal letter to one of her children. Well, she's doing 3 a day so she can get through her class in the week. So first of all, that just shows how much our educators love our children, and why we feel honored to do this work, to bring that our level of respect to the profession and to our schools, to the legislature. But second of all, like for our kids who are struggling, I'm seeing it with my own children, those little things are going to make a huge difference. And I know for some of our kids, even mail will be hard because they're just moving around, or, you know, staying in cars or in motels. So there were always going to be kids that were, as Greg said, it's going to be hard to get back. But I think thinking creatively is, my daughter's teacher sent a text message. She said, can you tell Letty that I miss her? And I told her, and Letty was like, Mom, she texted me. I was like, yeah, she did. That probably took that teacher 10 seconds, and it made my daughter's whole day. And so, which I know all of you educators out there are doing all of that stuff as the parent, and it matters a lot, but especially for our children who are really struggling, it's going to matter even more if you just write that postcard or drop that thing at their sidewalk or whatever, the way we can try to connect.
All right, let's go to the next question. High school students are hearing about places in the country that are ending learning, and then it sounds like the high school kids are hoping that we'll just end learning too. Clearly, that's not going to happen. But the question is, how can we bolster communication directly to students and reaffirm that we're engaged with them and we want them to be engaged with us? What do you think, teachers?
Deanna, that might be a good question for you.
So I know that seniors are a major part of our focus as we are moving forward. We have a student advisor on the state board who is one of those seniors who we have been in discussions with about how we plan for this as we move forward. And I know that there's been a lot of work already done at the agency about how to address the needs of seniors to ensure that they do stay engaged during this process, and so that we don't lose them, and make sure that they have everything that they need to transition to that next step, be that college. We know that there'll probably be some workforce issues with some of them that are going directly into the workforce, but we have engaged in trying to get like true student voice at the table to inform some of these decisions.
Specifically, one of our student state board advisors is on one of the working groups with us, and how to make sure that we're serving our seniors, particularly to make sure they're graduating. But and I mean, there are so many inspiring stories that I've been watching across the state of how to engage students. I've seen everything from teacher parades where the teachers are getting into their cars and they're driving down streets that have a high number of their students so that they can wave at them, and the students come outside onto their porch to just some incredible lessons. And I also know that we're trying to use specific initiatives and programs like UNCT to try and engage students. So I mean, there's so many inspiring stories that go into that. So leave it to a teacher, man. I'm telling you.
Love it.
I think Jeff and Paula asked this question, and it's something that is true for their question, and I think other areas. They talk about that an important lesson it's kind of an issue that we're seeing be laid bare is the lack of internet and infrastructure across our state. And we know that that's an issue. We have been advocating in the legislature. Lots of people have been advocating in the legislature for statewide broadband, and we haven't gotten there yet. But this is, I think you're right, Jeff and Paula, this is an example of how some of our shortcomings are really the fruit of those is really coming to bear now. That is true in this case with internet. We've made cuts to our public health system, pretty significant cuts to our public health system. So we have less staff that are able to now deal with some of these issues. So I think there are lots of ways that this crisis is magnifying some of the issues that we have let simmer for a long time. And in this case, with the internet, it has been completely tied to equity and whether, I mean, it is our lack of having accessible internet is creating an environment where we are going to further exacerbate the students who are excelling and the students who are falling behind. And that, again, how I started, the children that are falling behind who can't access the internet or having to sit in the McDonald's parking lot are no less deserving than the kids that have moms who are teachers like me that are trying to do the best that they can. So I think you're right. And I hope that now we will be collecting those stories so that when we are rebuilding our state, we can rebuild it in a way that really honors that each of those kids deserve the same thing. So I hope that you all will be doing that as well with us.
And Paul Lockwood, hello, Mr. Lockwood, pointed out that there are other states that have tried to do this by making buses into mobile hotspots. And we have seen some school districts, even in North Carolina, do that, and maybe more over the next few weeks. The Department of Information Technology put out a website that does have information on how local folks can get access to some free internet services during this time period. Be in an area that has internet services. So if you don't have broadband, that's not really going to help you. It's 9 o'clock. We're going to try and answer all the rest of your questions, but we're going to do it in a speed round, and we're going to ask Daquan to lock down the Q&A box if he can. But let's see. Let's go with Laura's question. There may be options for North Carolina virtual public school to teach some of our kids. How can we access that option, particularly for our seniors? Can we have Freebird or Deanna answer that one?
I think I can take that one, Freebird. So we have been working closely with NCBPS on ensuring that the spots that we have available in NCBPS to utilize those for those seniors who need to finish any courses that they need to finish out the year. So seniors are priority first, and then we will start working down to fill the needs of others based on any remaining slots. So seniors are the priority.
Okay. Next question from John. Are most districts allowing instructional assistants and other classified staff to work from home given the health concerns? So I think the guidance from the state board has certainly been to have classified staff working. We want them to be paid and to certainly work to keep our pay. Well, Governor Cooper's statement was to have them paid and in safe environments. So I believe that is the goal and the guidelines that the state board has given to districts across our state.
Excellent. Joanne asks, well, this is actually similar. Are teachers, actually a little bit different. Are teachers to stay home as long as the schools are closed, or can we be brought back in prior to May 15th for planning? My guess is that we're going to be under a stay in place order at most parts of the state at some point, and then after the stay in place order is lifted, but before schools are reopened, there'll probably be some time for teachers to get back to plan. But that's a guess because we've never been through this before, but that would be my best guess.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Another question from Jeff and Paula. Our son is in the AIG math curriculum and will be entering Math 1 in 8th grade this fall. He's missing any important instruction right now that will be needed for Math 1. What is the plan to bring students up to speed to make up for the learning gap in AIG and all other curricula? So I think the state board is coming up with options right now for how we will help with all of our children, include figuring out how we provide as much learning as we can this school year, but also what are we going to do this summer and as we transition to the next school year so that we can get kids the information they need to be ready to excel next year. So I think that there is a lot of good work with that on the state board, and I know we in the legislature look forward to those recommendations.
So my former colleague, Teresa, talks about the fact that when students come back to everything will have changed. They will have maybe a little more independence. Learning may look different. They may have experienced some different things. Are we going to create educational policy that will help us be ready to learn from this time and to create a more engaging school environment based on what we learned here? Anybody want to take that one on? Freebird, why don't you take that one on? Put you on the spot.
No, I mean, this is something that we're talking about, is that as we continue to listen to the needs of everybody on the ground, that's precisely what we're trying to do, is we're trying to re-envision what education could be. I think part of that is looking at a new calendar. I'm on one of the working groups that's doing that, is how do we plan in the future to we know that hurricanes are probably going to come. We're hypothesizing that there may be another outbreak of COVID-19, that we know that there are winter advisory, effects. So how do we build out a calendar that really serves the needs of our students, that allows for flexibility across the state, but also that addresses inequities and summer melt and things like that? So how can we use this experience to build out something that we've all been talking about, that we've all been, dreaming of and hoping for, and build out something that serves our students better? So absolutely, yes.
And the next question is an example of one of those ways we should maybe be thinking differently, from Brian Grant. Do you know him too, Greg? I'm feeling left out. Okay. Okay. Brian was asking about health, and his question went away, but he was talking about the health curriculum, and that it is not prioritized in the same way, that he only has 9 weeks to teach 18 weeks, and that a lot of that is helping kids be able to take care of themselves socially and emotionally for just things like this. So Brian, I'm glad you're advocating, and I know some PE teachers and health teachers that would love to advocate with you. So I think that is an example of things we ought to be asking differently when we start to think about how we build a new system from here.
All right, Michael says, are there plans in place for any retention options for students who would benefit from a second chance, particularly in elementary school, because of the time they lost this year?
This is Jeff. I can, I mean, I think that's obviously part of considerations, but I know a lot of policies at the state level give a lot of that flexibility to principals and teachers. And so I think the intent would be that the guidance from the state will basically be, here's how you need to think about these past few weeks and the few weeks coming, and think about your students, and then that decision will be made at the local level as to if a student should be retained or not. But I think it would be something that would be decided by the student's teacher and their principal.
Great.
I just want to make one point that someone I do know, I was her child's teacher, Marty made, and that is a point that has been made several times, which is that teacher, this is going back to if we extend the school year, teachers rely on summer income, and that we know that there would be an impact to teachers of that. So I just wanted to lift it up because it is certainly something we've heard a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Jill wants to know, would there be any exemptions in the shelter in place for students who have mentors so they could get some external support? And I have not seen that type of exemptions made in the shelter in place things. What I have seen is I have seen the national mentoring community work on creating great opportunities for mentors and kids to be able to connect virtually. So I know not all kids will have the ability to do that, and maybe there can be some exemptions as we figure out what do we need to fix about shelter in place, but that hasn't been a specific exemption yet in any of the drafts that I've seen for areas in North Carolina.
Christina asks, and I'm going to give this one to you, Deanna. As a teacher, I'm concerned that the consequence of remote learning might be the devaluation of direct instruction, especially if we supplant classes with NCVPS. What do you all think that could be perhaps unintended consequences of many weeks of remote instruction? I bet that's something you've thought about.
Something that we've thought about a lot. And even like before these pieces happen, you know, we've looked at the trends over time with remote learning, like just virtually. And so I think as we continue to look at this issue, I think it goes back to what Representative Clemmons was saying early on when we started this conversation. Unfortunately, this situation has highlighted some of those inequities, and I think we're going to have to work really hard to truly define out like what we mean by remote and distance learning, and then what are those things that we're going to need to put in place to protect our most vulnerable children, because they need that from us and we must guarantee that for them. So while we don't have the answer right yet, because we are still in those planning phases, it is truly at the forefront of all of our work and all of the considerations, and it's been lifted up in every single working group that we have structured.
And I just want to add that for me, this is really exemplifying everything I knew, that teaching is some about the content, but a lot about the love and relationships between an adult and child. And as much as they can put whatever content online, it's not going to change how my daughter feels not being in her school, in her classroom. And there is no substitute for the relationships that schools create. So it's my 2 cents on that.
I think to the same extent, we wouldn't expect that we're all going to start working remotely, hopefully, after this too. So we're all going to want to still be in connection with our teachers and everybody.
All right, Greg.
Christina asks, how should schools prepare for the possibility that students could become, or staff could become infected with the virus? And I don't know if anybody's thought about this yet, but this is the type of question that we've got a few weeks to solve at this point. Does anybody want to weigh in on that? Just agree.
I think, yeah, we have, yeah.
All right.
I do think it's probably a place that this is happening across certainly it's happened in our state, a couple of places. So we like learn from where other things are happening. But.
Right.
Is there a resource, perhaps county-based or school district-based, listing volunteer needs related to education and students and details of the authority that should be contacted? So that probably, like in Guilford County, we have the Volunteer Center, which is kind of organizing our response. I don't know if there's a statewide one. Does anybody else know?
So in the governor's office, there is a commission on volunteerism. And I know they're coordinating a lot of volunteer efforts around the state. I'm not sure if they're a resource for where volunteers can go for opportunities, but I can definitely find out and share. But if you Google NC Commission on Volunteerism, there might be some resources available on their site. You might also want to talk with your local emergency management folks, that there might be also coordinating efforts there at the local level.
There's also a ton of mutual aid being set up inside communities where folks are creating Google Docs and stuff to track that. And we have the statewide 211 network set up if you need to know what access to resources or what's available. If you talk to one of your students and they need some help, you can call 211 and figure out what's available to help them during this time. So let's see, final question from Jamie, who's been our rock star questionnaire tonight. Is a staggered start back something that we might consider to prevent a large scale secondary outbreak when kids return to school?
I think it's a great idea. It's something that we should consider. And I think in at least one conversation, I've heard the idea of staggering students coming back. That could we, now that we've extended to May 15th, it's not feasible, but could we have almost had a staggered time where maybe only a fifth of a class comes in at a time? So we're minimizing the number of students there. But I think it's one that should be considered. So.
All right, y'all, that was 40 questions, over 125 participants in just under an hour and 15 minutes. Let's give everybody a chance to say something to wrap up. Jeff, if you want to start us off, what would you like to close with?
I'll just say, first off, thanks for the level of engagement tonight and for jumping on this town hall to participate. And thank you to Representative Meyer and Representative Clemmons for hosting. I think this time is very stressful, I know, for everybody, and unprecedented, as both the governor and the representative said tonight. And so appreciate everyone being willing to discuss, but also to share ideas. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out to the governor's office, to me, with other questions or anything else that you might need help with.
All right. Deanna, how about you? What do you have for us?
Just to echo some of what Jeff has stated, just to say thank you for this opportunity, for the questions. They are definitely food for thought as we continue to build out this plan. We will take the ideas, bring them back to the groups so that we can incorporate those into our thoughts. We just want everyone to stay safe. We truly care about all the children, all the teachers that are going through these tough times. And always know that we are here to support. Thank you.
Freebird?
First of all, I just want to say I miss my friends. I miss you, Deanna. I miss us being able to work together. But I also want to say that to echo Governor
that means something about Greg and I.
No, I mean, we work right. Our offices are right next to each other.
I'm just kidding.
But I wanted to echo Governor Cooper's remarks in his release the other day, which is not a single one of us has given up on this year, and bringing everybody back together and bringing our kids back, so that we can love them and teach them and be with them. And I just ask all of y'all to continue to be the lighthouses that all of you are in your communities, for your students and for your schools and for the parents. And just a huge thank you. Thank you, Representative Clemmons and Representative Meyer, for all that you're doing to put public education first in this state. And I appreciate you allowing me to be on here and to work with our educators. Thank you.
Absolutely. Representative Clemmons?
So I want to end with, there has maybe never been a time I've been more proud of our traditional public school system here in our state. There is no other system or structure that in a crisis like this is worried about our most vulnerable children and doing whatever it takes to get them fed and taken care of. Nobody else in this state is calling me to say, I want to make sure the children in juvenile detention get their learning while they're gone. Or calling the state saying, there's this family I can't find and I need help. That is our public educators who know that every single child that comes in our building, no matter who they are and where they come from, deserves our best. And you are the people that were doing that well before this happened. You're doing it now. And when the world moves on, you're going to continue doing that work. And I'm so proud to be, I'm going to count myself still among you. And I'm proud to have been an educator and to continue to bring those voices to the legislature.
And I'm going to close with a quote that was sent to me from Dawn Gilchrist, the 2020 Western Regional Teacher of the Year, about where we're at right now. And it just makes me think about how important teachers are, but also how important parents are going to be during the next few weeks and months. And she said, if distance learning is to be the primary way students are educated in the next weeks and months, our population, which is mobile and uncertain in the best of times, will receive far less than students with necessary resources. Although packets, even creative packets, will have to suffice without a human face or voice behind them, they are to interactive teaching what a one-dimensional picture of a classroom is to an actual classroom, without vitality or human warmth. Y'all, we're going to be ready for as much human warmth and vitality as we can get. And thank you all for coming on and being part of this today and for taking care of all the kids while they're at home. Good luck over the next few weeks. Contact any of us if you need us. Thanks to all the panelists for joining us tonight. And don't forget that the House Select Committee is going to be at what time on Thursday, Ashton?
1 o'clock on Thursday. It will be broadcast on the website. Please join in.
Follow the State Board of Education and Legislative Committee meetings by checking out when we're going to be meeting on our websites, and you'll be able to follow along. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.
Good night. Thank you.